Alright, so I want to do a video about what I think is the most important, or at least most difficult challenge that you'll face as an artist today, generally speaking. Obviously, I can't speak for everyone. Also, the reason my eyes are like this, I'm not crying. I went out to do a workout earlier and I had sun cream on and it started raining. It was all getting in my eyes on the way home. And it was just burning so much. I don't know why, it was killing me. And then I was doing some like chicken tikka when I got back. I don't know what was up with this onion, but it's like, maybe it's because the bulb of the onion is still in the bin or something, but it was like an hour ago I made this and my eyes still haven't recovered. Maybe I got chili in my eyes or something, I don't know, but I'm fucked up. I've been blowing my nose and shit. I'm not ill, I'm not crying, it's just onions and sun cream. You know how it goes. So anyway, yeah. Sitting here like a little fucking old lady, like a little grandma, all teary-eyed. That's a sort of depressing portrait of grandmas I'm painting there. My grandma wasn't like crying all the time or anything. We didn't mistreat her. Actually, I had two grandmas, funnily enough, as most of us do. And we didn't mistreat either of them. And I don't remember ever seeing either of them cry. But the point still stands. Forget about it, alright? Yeah, anyway. So, the biggest challenge, I think, certainly the biggest challenge I face, and I've come to realise this over time, is creative dilemmas. Like, as in, difficult choices you have to make regarding what to do with a project, how to finish it, how to see it through. Should you choose A or B? Should you go in this direction or that direction? That, to me, nowadays is the biggest and most important part of making art for most people, I think. Obviously, you could look at it a number of different ways and say, trying to promote your work but I'm focusing more on the creation of art here. And I guess the reason I'm saying that is because learning things is much easier than it was. You can learn anything on YouTube. You can learn how to mix. You can learn how to fucking illustrate. You can learn how to do whatever. You don't need to even go to fucking school for any of it. You can just watch it on YouTube. And the process of making things is very quick and streamlined nowadays. If you think how easy it is to record now compared to 30 years ago, it's ridiculous. I mean, how arduous it used to be to use a studio. When you see these studios, they've got these fucking massive mixing desks, all this shit going on, and now you have all of that on a fucking laptop that costs 400 quid. It's crazy. So it's really easy and fast. The process of making things, generally speaking, that doesn't apply to all mediums, obviously, and still, with that, the standards and people's expectations and output kind of changes, relatively speaking. So, it's not to say that there's no like grind or that it doesn't take a long time to actually make things, but in many ways, I'd say it's a lot easier than it was. And I think this applies to a lot of fields. I saw an interview with Jeff Bezos and he was saying how he makes sure to sleep really well, and that to him sleeping for a really long time is important because he doesn't have to actually do that much. He just has to make like 4 or 5 good decisions a day, and that's his job, really. He's not like having to do any, obviously he's not doing any manual work, but he's not having to do any, he literally, his job is just being a decision maker. And to some degree, that I think that will become all of our jobs as time goes on. In most fields, like people are going to become decision makers because everything will be automated, or a lot more things will be automated. We won't have to do all of the kind of legwork ourselves, and so it comes down to being smart and making the right choices. And yeah, certainly with music specifically, I'd say that's a very difficult process. It's the part I kind of dread the most, in a way, is when I have to decide, like, do I keep this take, for example, a very like, you do a version of a song that's like quite quiet and like soft spoken or whatever, and then you do another version that's like more intense or upbeat or whatever, and you have to kind of decide which you prefer, or deciding which image to use as the cover for something, or deciding what direction to take a project in, which songs to remove, what order to put the songs in, things like that. Those are the parts that I think require serious mental energy and focus, and that are decisive, like in terms of the quality of the work that you put out in the end. I think the idea of people needing to spend 14 hours a day every day of their life to make good art, I think, is a bit outdated now, and it will become more and more outdated with time. I don't think it's good, if you put loads of time in, and you have a good balance, that's good, but I just don't think it's necessary. And I think you could put all of that time in and make crappy decisions and make crappy stuff. I'm sure you can think of artists out there who do that, who their whole thing is I fucking grind, I'm in the studio from fucking 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. or whatever, and they don't make good stuff, So both things are important, but I do think your capacity to make good creative decisions is becoming more and more of a factor with every day that goes by. Whereas in the past, it's probably also who's actually willing to sit there in the studio for all that time and do a million takes, and who's willing to who's actually adept enough at playing the guitar, or using all this complicated equipment, who's willing to go through all this tedium. But yeah, that's less of a factor now, as I've probably reiterated 100 times. But yeah, and so when it comes to making these decisions, I still find it very difficult. To me, it's something I kind of dread in a way, and it makes me often wish I had more collaborators, because it's very difficult to make these decisions on your own. You're in kind of a bubble, and sometimes it's just I don't know. I know these two versions are totally different, and clearly one must be better than the other, but I just don't know. I can't decide. Yeah, only you can really ultimately help yourself with that. But I think things like meditating, sleeping well, as Jeff Bezos mentioned, and as is obviously very important. I think the idea of not sleeping so you can work on things is absolute fucking bullshit. Just so outdated and stupid, and I don't know. Maybe maybe it affects people differently, but to me, I just don't think you can work properly if you're sleep deprived. You can, but I just don't think that should be a habit. I don't think you can definitely make great things if you haven't slept the night before, or you haven't slept for a couple of days or whatever, but you're much more likely, I think, to be consistent and focused and reliable, and to make good choices if you're actually looking after yourself. So yeah, meditation, sleep, things like that, all the obvious things. And I guess just to some degree, just knowing what you're up against and realizing, okay, if it takes you 2 weeks to just think about these two images and you don't know which one to use, or it takes you, maybe that's okay. Maybe not. Maybe you're wasting your time, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it's normal that you spend more time thinking about things and trying to decide between two different things, or trying to make a difficult decision, trying to plan things. Maybe it's normal that you spend more time sometimes doing that than actually, working, as in doing something tangible. I think spending a lot of time trying to decide things is it is an important part of the work. And maybe if you're like I sometimes can be, if you're a workaholic, or you sort of pressuring yourself, you feel like you always need to be doing something and you're afraid of wasting time, you can rob yourself of that valuable time, that time that you often need to spend thinking, and sometimes even not thinking and waiting for answers to come to you. Sometimes when you have a very difficult dilemma, whether it's in life or creatively, you can just, sometimes you wait a while and something hits you. I had it when I was By the way, a plug incoming. The paperback is now out for Practical Strategies for Better Mental Health. It's also available in ebook form, obviously, as you probably know if you follow this channel. But yeah, it looks real fucking nice. I'm really happy with it. I mean, the print quality on the cover is not fantastic, but it's fine. I mean, it's a short book. It's very short. It's only, in terms of the actual, it's like 84 pages or something. So it's not really intended to fucking look great on your bookshelf. You know, it's really just like as it says on the cover, practical guide. But when I was making this, a link will be in the description and everything, by the way. When I was making this, I had a completely different book planned, and I just, in the back of my mind, I think I knew I didn't like it. I would read it and I would just cringe, and I wouldn't say I cringed, but I didn't feel fully comfortable with it, and it made me stop. You know, I kind of started procrastinating, and I sort of stopped writing it for a while. And then I was working out one day, and then suddenly the concept for this just hit me. Like, I was just at the park, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, like, split it into 2 halves, remove all the crap, and make it more straightforward and science-based and literal, and just remove all the stuff that I don't like. It's kind of simple, you know. And the most important thing there, I guess, was putting it into 2, because previously it was in 5 sections. I don't want to go into what those 5 sections were, but splitting it into 2, I don't remember exactly how that thought came into my head, but I wasn't intending to think about it. I was just working out, and it just sort of suddenly, I was like, oh shit, and I had to write it down immediately, you know. And that was a hugely important, pivotal breakthrough in finishing the book, which I couldn't have achieved with just mindless work, you know. I would have just ended up creating more and more and more of something that ultimately I wasn't that comfortable with. So, yeah, the decisions you make and the thoughts that you have about your work are very important, and it's not always about, you know, feeling active and feeling like you're doing something. It's also good to be in a good place mentally, and to be ready. Another great way, obviously, to be in that place is to fucking absorb art and enjoy it. And sometimes that gets lost as well, I think, for people, is the enjoyment of other people's work and being a fan of things. And certainly I know for me that happens a lot. And yeah, it's not a waste of time to sit around watching music videos, or to watch movies, or to, you know, whatever. It's all very helpful for your own. Even inspiration can come from very strange places. When I put out my album Oak Tree, I was finishing that album, and I got really addicted to Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that game really changed the creative direction of that album. At the time I was like, I'm wasting so much fucking time playing this game and just getting baked all the time and shit, and then it, you know, changed the course of the album quite a lot in quite positive ways. It gave me quite a lot of inspiration in a way, and I'm not saying it's good to like sit around playing computer games all the time, but like, yeah, I think just being a human being, you know, and allowing your mind to giving it something, you know, tasty to chew on once in a while is not such a bad thing. I don't think you have to fucking like abuse yourself with work constantly, like some of the stories you hear coming out of these studios. I personally think it's a bit stupid, and I think soon it will be kind of a thing of the past. So yeah, I hope this was useful. Check out the book if you get a chance. And as usual, if you can't afford it, or you don't have Kindle, or, well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you don't have Kindle because you can get it on paperback now, but whatever, if you can't afford it, drop me a message here, or BigDome22 on Instagram, and I'll send you a free copy. Take care.